shines on today, darling. What a wonderful, wonderful day there'll be. What a wonderful day for you and me. Church bells will chime, you will be mine in apple blossom time. Everybody sing, everybody sing. This is for everyone, okay? That one word is Bedoff, I think. Okay, Norris, Callie, Bedoff, and Murphy, okay? Here we go. Norris, Callie, Bedoff, and Murphy. Norris, Callie, Bedoff, and Murphy. Norris, Callie, Bedoff, and Murphy. London and Christensen. Okay. I'm sorry we can't see this, but the next verse nobody has the words for, so sing even if you don't have the words. This is Church and Shakespeare, Dickinson, Talbot. You say that 4 times. Say it with me here. Church and Shakespeare, Dickinson, Talbot. So we repeat that 3 times, and then Neuman, Brandon, Snyder. Okay, you got that? Neuman, Brandon, Snyder. So this is the church verse here. Okay, here we go. Church and Shakespeare, Dickinson, Talbot. Church and Shakespeare, Dickinson, Talbot. Church and Shakespeare, Dickinson, Talbot. Neuman, Brandon, Snyder. Those are some of the people you're going to be hearing about today, so I hope you'll recognize those names as we have these histories. Okay, I need my family to come up stage here. We're going to, our part is about Joseph Lathel Callister, and though he couldn't be here with us physically, we wanted to try to bring his spirit here. So what we've done is gone back to his family, to his history that he wrote, and the things we'll be telling you today will be things that were directly from the things he wrote. And we'll be doing those in between each of the different parts. So first of all, I'm going to play a tape, and I'm not really sure, it's probably going to be hard to understand, but at least you can hear Grandpa's voice. And this was done in 1981, so almost 20 years ago, that he gave his testimony and told some of his experiences. And so we'll just do that right now.
And in 1974, I had an opportunity to become bishop again. And so this was quite an experience. And through all this experience, it seemed like that the old adage was true, that if you work and have a desire for something, you have an opportunity. I never did turn down a job in the church. I was never a time when I wasn't quite active. After I'd been bishop for about 2 years this last time, we were called on a mission to South Dakota. With the West Navy of the Indians, and it was a wonderful experience for us. As we came back home, we were questioning what I was doing. I was told to be originated in the Fenway region as part of the responsibilities and new position. And we only had them. In about a year, more than that, I was asked to work at the take care of the storehouse in Delta, and that's good at the present time. The goodest time we've had in our lives, of course, has been when we had children coming into the home, when they were graduated from the various classes and churches and school. No participation in the activities in the school. They were all active in music, athletics, voice, and various things, and we really enjoyed that. Along with the other things, every year we would have family reunions, and over all the years we tried to figure it so that all the family would be here. And for the main part, it's worked out that way. So in order to do it, you have to make your program work around the ones who are the farthest away. Unless something's on the mission or in the service or something that was really tied wondering why almost every year we've had the great majority of our children here to our family reunions. Another highlight we had just this year was our golden wedding anniversary. All the children are here and all their in-laws except Carol, who's in Texas and couldn't come at that particular time. And we just thank our Father in heaven for the blessings that have come to us. It just seems like it's impossible to think of the many things that we enjoy and have enjoyed during the years. And we just pray that our association with our children and home associated will always be good and have love and harmony in our homes and respect for our fellow man and the Lathel churches.
That was a little hard to understand, I'm sure, but he talks about how important family reunions were to him and how he wants us all to be together. And if you'd like to hear more of that, we could do that afterwards. Okay, I've got a little part from Trish. Her part was about Carly Lyman Callister, who was the daughter of Eliza Maria Partridge and Amos Mason Lyman. She married Thomas Callister on February 14th, 1878. Her mother writes, "Went to Endowment House and saw my daughter Carly sealed as wife to Brother T. Callister." Later from Eliza Maria's journal we read, March 6, 1879, my daughter Carly taken sick. March 7th, Carly very sick indeed, sent for Platte in the night. About 8:30, Carly was delivered of a fine son weighing 8 pounds. Carly's sufferings during this day are past description. She rested very well that night, but was very lame next day and could not move without being lifted on a sheet. March 13th, Carly appears to be getting worse all the time, has fever all the time, and has had ever since the baby was born. March 18th, Carly had a fearful night. She has given up all hope of getting well and wants her brothers and husband sent for. She has named the baby Joseph for one of her brothers and given it to me, saying it will be such a comfort to me. I sent for her brothers Joseph and Platte, who came immediately. She talked to all the family separately, giving them good counsel. She said she had no fear of death, but was perfectly willing to go, for she had many friends in that other and better world. I can truly say that I never saw a child so careful of their mother as she was. There was nothing that she thought would add to her mother's comfort, but that she would do it if it was in her power. I sent to Fillmore for her husband, Brother T. Callister, as she was very anxious to see him before she went. She requested all but him and me to leave the room as she wanted to talk to us alone. She told him she must go and leave her darling baby, which she wanted her mother to have and keep. She wanted me to teach him to love his pa as he would, not like to see him much. Brother C. asked her if she was sorry that she had married, as that seemed to be the cause of, or one of the causes of this sickness which is hurrying her out of this world. She said she was not, for she would rather suffer it all again than not to have had the baby, although she had so soon to leave him. March 20th, the Lord took her at 12:30. Great has been her suffering, and great will be her reward. March 23rd, by Carly's request before she died, Platte has been added to the baby's name, as she wanted it for both her brothers. So it makes it Joseph Platte Callister. Such is the legacy that we have. Truly, Carly gave us an example of following the Lord's plan and remaining true to the things she knew and understood. I pray that we all will follow her example and prepare ourselves so that we'll be able to be with her and the rest of our great posterity eternally. We're going to have some little narrations about Joseph Lathel Callister in between the parts, so you can, let's see, this would be Neil next. You guys could be getting ready and coming on up as they do this.
Where was Grandpa born?
He wrote, I was about the third baby born in Burtner, which later became Delta. I weighed 10 pounds. Our family later moved to Oak City, where at age 8, I was baptized in a ditch east of town.
Program is about Grandma Church. My family none of them knew Grandma, so I just thought I'd get up and tell some things that I remember about when I was young and growing up and being around Grandpa and Grandma Church. It seemed like that we always had a lot of fun. There was always a lot of laughing and games and different things. I think that a lot of our heritage, we have fun getting together for family reunions and doing things together as a family, and I think we come by that through them. And I know it seemed like, I remember when Grandma was getting older, that I went in, we'd take turns and go in and stay with her overnight after Grandpa died, and it was really special. She always made us feel really welcome there, and she was taking care of us, we weren't taking care of her. But I just proud of our heritage, our ancestors, and the things that they did for us, and I hope that we can carry on the tradition and be a good example for our kids and for the generations to come. Thank you.
From his journal. Mother had heart problems and was confined to bed a lot of the time. Many times I sat on Mother's bed and she helped me cut out valentines or pictures, read stories, and taught me to sing. She also taught me about our Heavenly Father, how to pray, and that our Father in heaven hears and answers prayers. You will never find anyone more loving, tender, and attentive than my father was with Mother.
Okay, Vaughn, you're on. And as soon as we get our next little part done, it will be Terry.
The part I had is on Sarah Elizabeth Christensen, and what I would say about this is that there's no one in this room that ever met her, I don't think. And so there's not a lot we know about her other than what we've been told or what we've heard. And the little bit that I have heard or been told came from Grandpa Callister, which we just heard about, his feelings about his mother. But the other information we have came mainly from the Christensen family, which some of us know some of the Christensens, which were a big and a neat family. But the things that I'm going to read something that I prepared, but it's all coming from 4 resources, and I'm going to show those to you so that you can read more about it, because there's just a lot of information that's been written about the Christensen family and where she fits in the family. The first one is Descendants of John Lovell, and that's where this picture came from. But there's a good treatment there about, probably more in that than anything else, about Sarah Elizabeth Christensen. Then another is the Milestones of Miller County. That talks about Oak City and Delta and the old Delta 3rd Ward and the old Oak City Ward and choirs and lots of things. That's where most of the pictures that you see, I think, today came from. A lot of them, well, they're in there anyway. The other is The Posterity of My Beloved Father, Joseph Platte Callister, written by Aunt Ladine. And this is 3 or 4 pages long. It's kind of poetic. And then I have, I don't know who this is written by. Does anybody know who put these together? I think Ken actually had this typed up, but in any event, it's the Elizabeth Sarah Christensen Callister story of her life. And that tells, again, a lot of things about her. But let me read some of the things that impressed me from those articles. And I'm getting help from Alexandria, my granddaughter here, Joshua's daughter. So she's going to be the visual aid for you. Okay, Sarah Elizabeth Christensen was born August 12th of 1883. She was the sixth child and second daughter in a family of 14 children. When she was fully grown, she was 5 feet 8 inches tall, 165 pounds, blue eyes and brown hair. And for some reason, then where they talked about the statistics, they told chest size, which is 44. And I don't know if we do that anymore in our stats, but anyway, that was in there. See, now they want to be twiggy, so it's not a big deal. Then I think it was a big deal. She was raised in a 2-bedroom adobe home with 5 windows. The home was built by her father, and as I was reading this, they said that they had to do an addition when they got these 14 children, and they built a second home right next to the first home, and there's only 2 or 3 feet between them. And the article said that Sarah Elizabeth would, when she had suitors would come, and they would like to go between those 2 buildings and could lean against the 2. They put their feet on one and their back on the other. Kind of interesting. But her father built that home. Married Joseph Platte Callister May 16th of 1907. She bore 2 sons and 2 daughters and died on April 25th of 1920 at age 26. That's why none of us knew her. She died pretty young. This was taken from Joseph Platte Callister's life history by Ladine Keeler. Joseph asked Elizabeth's father for her hand, and it said that he rode his horse to the Christensen home and went up to the door, and the article seemed to sound like he was pretty intimidated by that. I never had to do that, and I don't know how I got away with that, but then they traveled by horse and buggy to Manti to be married. Their first home was in Oak City, then they moved to Delta, and then back to Oak City where she passed away. But then from the John Lovell history, these are things I want you to think about our family and see how many of these traits our family have that may have come from this Christensen line. A beautiful alto voice. She was in demand as a singer to community and church functions. She sang in the choir and sang with her brothers Lorenzo and Edward. 2 favorites were In the Shade of the Old Apple Tree and Rollicking Dolly Day. And the history said that many times, she never sang Rollicking Dolly Day, but what she was asked to come back and sing it a second time because she sang it so beautiful. So apparently had a very good voice. She was called to teach the religion class in the Oak City ward. She helped prepare the Oak City Sunday School history for the church historian. She always had her reports in on time. She was a great lover of dancing and always had plenty of partners. She could spin yarn and was a natural-born cook. As a young girl, she excelled in playing jacks. She was careful never to say a single angry word against anyone. She could spin yarn. Oh, I got there. As she became ill, she invited her brother Edward to administer to her. There was no blessing of healing, and she understood. The night she passed away, she told those attending her that she didn't need anyone to stay. She just wanted to be alone with her husband. She asked him to put out the light and lay down beside her. It wasn't long until she slept peacefully away. And then from the words of Lord Christensen, her brother, said she didn't have much, there wasn't much schooling possible, but she was a good student through the 5 or 6 years that she went. She was a good writer and a good speller. She helped clerk in a store owned by her brother in Sevier County. She was handy at making clothes and kept her children well dressed. She tried to keep enough fruit put up to last her family for at least 2 years. She taught her children to sing. So those were the things about Sarah Elizabeth Christensen.
What was the hardest experience in Grandpa's life, and how did he deal with it?
For a few days after his mother died, when he was 10 years old, he was stunned. He just couldn't believe that his Father in heaven would allow a mother to be taken from her husband and young family that way. Thanks to the teachings of his wonderful parents and others, and the answers to his prayers, he realized our Heavenly Father loves and is mindful of our problems and sorrows.
Okay, we were asked to talk about Castina Lovell Christensen. So we're going to try a cute little way to do this. Sheldon trained me this on our little fishing trip the other day, so he told me my original version was very boring, so we'll see how it goes. No, after he told me he was going to do, mine sounded really boring, that's the truth. Okay, I am John Lovell. I was born in 1812 in England.
My name is Ann Parsons, John's first wife. We met while working together at a dairy in England.
We married in 1835 and moved to Canada.
While in Canada, the gospel was preached to us by John Taylor and later by the prophet Joseph Smith. We were baptized in 1837. Shortly after, we left Canada for Nauvoo, arriving in Nauvoo in 1841.
We left Nauvoo with the other saints in 1846 and settled in winter quarters where in 1851 my wife Anne passed away, leaving me with 7 children, one of which was a baby. In 1852, I married Elizabeth Smith. That year, we arrived in the Salt Lake Valley.
John and his family lived in Provo for a short time, then moved to Fillmore. Annie Pedersen, John's second wife, was born in 1824 in Denmark. Annie and her 2 sisters and 3 brothers were orphaned very young, due to the death of both parents within 3 months of each other. Annie was sent to live with an uncle, where as a result of hard work and cold weather, she lost much of her hearing.
My name is Annie. I married Jens Andersen in 1846 in Denmark. We joined the church in Denmark and with our 2 small children left for America in 1854. That same year, Jens was called by Brigham Young to settle in Fillmore. Jens became seriously ill after we arrived in Fillmore and died in 1855, leaving me with 3 small children, no income, and I spoke very little English. Our bishop asked John Lovell to look after me and my family. We were later married.
I was the first of John and Anne's 5 children. I was born in Fillmore in 1858.
She's Castina, by the way. I didn't put that in the thing right. Okay. In about 1860, I moved my families to Deseret to help settle that area. We lived there 8 years and were finally forced to leave due to the many failures of the Severe River Dam that we built. We participated in the building of the mud fort.
John and his families were one of the first families to settle in Oak Creek, which is Oak City. John was appointed presiding elder by Thomas Callister. The original town layout was 3 blocks wide and 8 blocks long. At age 14, Castina was selected as the May Day Parade Queen. Perhaps the celebration was held right here. It was said of her, Castina Lovell was a lovely young woman, quick to learn, fast at spinning and weaving, efficient at housework, and popular with the young people.
Anthony Christensen and I were married by Apostle Joseph F. Smith in 1873. We had 14 children, 9 boys and 5 girls.
No pioneers were more devout than Anthony and Castina. They did all within their power to live the gospel and teach it to their children.
In 1888 came one of the greatest challenges of our lives when Anthony was called on a mission to his native Denmark. We had 10 children at the time, ranging in age from 1 month to 17 years old. It was a struggle for me and the children to make it during this time. The older boys assumed great responsibility and kept the farm work going. Anthony completed a wonderful mission and was released November 15, 1893.
Anthony and Castina Lovell Christensen were an unusual couple. By their example of patience, honesty, and integrity, they gained the love of their children, the admiration of their friends, and the respect of their business acquaintances. John died at age 68 in Oak City. Annie died at age 96 in Oak City. Castina died at age 54 in Oak City. And Anthony died at age 67 also in Oak City.
What were some of Grandpa's early church experiences? He wrote, I enjoyed primary, especially the group singing we did as boys and the special parties we had. We learned, I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord, and at Hilda's place. When an electrical storm came up, there was lightning, thunder, and it was really dark. We decided we'd go where we were wanted if somebody would go with us. Father always went to church, and I vividly remember him taking us children to tithing settlement to visit with the bishop. I have many testimonies of the blessings that come from paying tithing.
After the next little narration part, then we'll have Neuman.
This is on Boletta Sorenson, who married Christensen. So both of them will be mentioned in this account. Christensen was born June the 4th, 1808, at Horstrup in a tiny village in Denmark. He was the third child of Christian Christensen and Annie Katherine Marge. Boletta was born October 28, 1816 in Boletta, not far from Oslo. She was the sixth child of Sorenson and Betty Nilsson. Christian and Boletta were married in 1837 in a village church of Volsley. Christian and Boletta owned a large farm called Ostergaard. The farm consisted of 425 acres, 4 cows, 40 to 60 head of sheep, and 2 pigs. The Christensens had their first introduction to Mormonism before they ever met missionaries. It came via the gospel or grapevine group route, and it was not complimentary. One of the most lamentable episodes in Mormon history is the Mormon Meadows Massacre. Anti-Mormon people throughout the world made the most of the incident. The Christensen family heard the stories. The older boys were curious about the message that the missionaries brought. They had seen and heard these missionaries on the streets in the town. Boletta, then 40, had strong convictions. She knew about the Mormons, and at least she thought she did. When the missionaries came to her door, she told the children to stick the dog on them. Her husband was inclined to take a kindlier view and asked the missionaries into the house. The missionaries explained briefly the principles of the gospel and bore their testimonies and left a copy of the Book of Mormon. They then invited the family to a cottage meeting. The Christian family attended the meeting set by the missionaries. They studied the gospel, and soon Boletta was ready to be baptized. She wielded a strong influence on the family. Christian wanted to be sure. He may have been thinking about the persecution heaped on the people when they joined the church. By April 1861, the entire family had been baptized. Christian and Boletta and their 5 children soon were making plans to emigrate to America. It was not easy for them to think of leaving their beautiful country of their birth. The Christensens disposed of their possessions and reported April the 8th, 1862 at the sailing vessel Franklin at Hamburg, Germany, the point of embarkation. On Thursday, May 29th, in the afternoon, they arrived in New York Harbor after 45 days at sea. On July 14th, 1862, the journey across the plains began under the leadership of Captain Madsen. On September 23rd, the Christensen family and others of the train arrived in Salt Lake City. They had stood the trip well and were glad to be inside at last. The family was on their own and continued to Spanish Fort, Utah. Here, they built a home, and for the first time were very lonely, for they couldn't speak English language very well. Christian found the farming conditions very different from what he found in Denmark. They moved in 1863 to Monroe, San Fe County. They spent 2 years there, then went to Sevier Valley when it was opened up in 1865, settling in the South Bend area. Sometime during the Black Hawk War, the Christian family was called to Marysville in Piute County to build that up with a small settlement. But due to Indian problems, the county was evacuated and the Christian family moved back to Monroe. In 1869, they moved to Scipio in Millard County. While in Scipio, their son Soren met and married a Danish convert, Caroline Nielsen. 1870, Anthony and Soren, accompanied by Annie, went to Oak City to attend the 24th of July celebration and work for wages. They liked Oak City and persuaded their parents to move again. So Christian and Boletta made their final move to Oak City. Soren and Caroline came also. Here in Oak City, they found the peace and contentment they had been seeking since they left Denmark. And here they built a new adobe house and settled down. Christian died on August 3rd, 1880, at the age of 72. His wife,
good wife Boletta died 80 years later, on October 12, 1888, 16 days before she would have been 72 years old. They are buried in the Oak City Cemetery.
Did Grandpa like to play sports?
He wrote, "We played a lot of baseball. Uncle Willard Christensen taught me how to catch. He said, you don't have to worry how fast the ball is coming. Just be sure to have the mitt in the right place." I always played on a regular team as catcher until I was 50 years old. That's about the age of Sheldon right now, right?
My information today is on Grandpa Church. My first name, Neuman, was after his name, middle name. Grandpa Church was born in Panguitch, February 1st, 1886. He died in Delta, January 5th, 1972, 85 years old. I didn't realize he was that old when he died. He married Sarah Jane Shakespear, August 21st, 1905. They had 12 children, 3 girls and 9 boys. He built he built his first home in Panguitch out of logs. He built it on the logs his father had given to him. Grandpa Church had many occupations. He was always busy, doing something. He never stood still. A lot of people like here today. He was a farmer, plaster, sheep shearer, mail route driver. He provided the first auto mail service in southern Utah. He was a realtor, livestock trader. He sold insurance, and I'm sure there's many other things he did during his lifetime to put food on the table. Grandpa Church operated a sheep shearing business in Utah, Nevada, California, Arizona, and Montana. And when I saw Montana, I was quite impressed because Montana's a beautiful country up there. That's some of the other places. During one of the seasons, Daddy worked with him and his other sons on a shearing project. And he talked about going to different areas. They'd go into some areas. In some areas, there wasn't a lot of work, and in other areas, they'd find work. So they were kind of always on a go trying to locate work. And Daddy said of that he was always honest in his dealings with others, no matter what the conditions might be. Grandpa was in the bishopric 2 times, once in Henryville and once in the South Track area. Grandpa loved music and was a good singer. He played the guitar, accordion, and the harmonica. And it seemed like to me there might have been another 1 or 2 instruments that he mentioned. I know he could chord on the piano. And Deanna said he loved all people. He suffered when they suffered, helped those in need, rejoiced with those who were rejoicing. And I think that a lot of this comes from his experience with his own children and so forth. I remember Uncle Wally was sick a lot, and he's always getting help there and so forth. Daddy said about Grandpa Church, he said Grandpa was always worried about the children. Several times during a party or a activity at the church, he would say he had to leave to check up the children. So he's always, very busy at that. He loved family get-togethers and sporting events that involved his children or grandchildren. He loved to play rook. When I read this, I thought about Grandma Church, where she always used to say hocus pocus, over the cards, and I don't know if she'd ever win or not, but she's always saying hocus pocus. He loved to go fishing at Panguitch Lake, and I think that's where the a lot of the church boys now, like to go because they used to fish that and know how to fish that area. As I mentioned earlier, he was always on the go, always had someone he needed to see. I can remember that as he was getting older, he would say he had to meet somebody somewhere, some this or that. One time he told a story about he met a guy, or actually a family in Delta, and they went out to out west quite a ways, out in the boondocks with some sheep, and they got out there and got lost, and it was about midnight when they got back. But he was concerned about the family, so he called them the next day to make sure they made it home. That's kind of Grandpa's attitude. The summarization of this, it says his greatest memory, my greatest memory of Grandpa was his love and pride in his family. All of us that knew Grandpa very well and all knew he was always bragging about family. He always had a story to tell. He's always, there's some terminology that I use which can't use it in here so long, but he's always going around talking to people and giving them all this good stuff, and he was just a fun person to be around. I remember one time we were up at their house when he was older, and he started telling a story, and Grandma was like over here, he was on the couch, I think I was next to him, and other people were on the couch and spread about the room. Well, he started talking, telling the story, and he started going like this on the couch. And he kept on going right to where, we tried putting him back, and he kept on going. Grandma wasn't happy about that, but he was just really a fun person to be around, had a good story to always tell, and was always concerned about his family.
Aunt JoAnn, you'll be next.
Grandpa had quite a reputation for being a good farmer. Where did he get his start?
He wrote, I had a small garden of my own where I raised radishes, peas, tomatoes, melons, and peanuts. Yes, we harvested and roasted the peanuts, and they were really good. Father also let me keep a few sheep and pigs. I had to pay the expenses, but got something out of it too.
Our assignment is Joseph Platte Callister. If you kind of remember what Vaughn said, we're going to elaborate a bit on a couple of things. Okay. This one right here is Joseph Platte, right there. Look at that black hair. Okay, Joseph Platte, and this is Lathel, and this is Grandma Sarah Elizabeth, right over there. This is Grandpa Joseph Platte when he was a teenager, Maralyn and I figure. This is Joseph and Sarah Elizabeth, and on the back we got a little surprise out of Grandpa when he was older, so when I tell you when he was older, we're going to turn that over. Okay, Lane is first. Joseph Platte Callister, which is Lathel's father.
So his father at the age of 1 had been left an orphan and in the care of his grandmother when just a few days old. When he was 5, she died, and he lived with Uncle Joey Lyman. His cousin Carly says, he was always my favorite brother. There never was a better man, never lived.
As a young man, he spent much of his time in Blanding with his cousin Albert R. Lyman, who writes, your father had implicit faith in prayer. When we were traveling and camping together, we always had prayer. In one time we were camped in a remote quarter in the San Juan country. I went on an errand, returning sooner than expected. When I came in sight of him, he was praying as he kneeled in a little grove of oaks with his face upturned. He had He had a faith in the Lord from his early childhood. I think he inherited it from his grandmother. It was breathed into him and built upon by Uncle Jody.
Aunt Ladine continues. Mother and father were married in the Manto Temple, 16 May 1907. Their first home was in Burtner, later called Delta. Lathel and Carly were born, and a short time later they moved to Oak City, where Tony and I completed the family. Our living came from chickens, a truck garden and farm on which were grown hay for milk cows, fruit for eating, and apples for cider. Mother always kept the cellar filled with bottled fruit, jam, jelly, pickles, and apples. She loved to sew and made dresses for Carly and me.
Early one morning, Grandfather Anthony Christensen came out of his home to find a young man on horseback, waiting to ask for our mother's hand in marriage. I think that's the way it should be done now, wouldn't you?
Unknown to us girls, in the minds of two young people, many plans and dreams were laid, and with them a busy time for Mother and Elizabeth, as a beautiful white wedding dress and quilts were made. One patch quilt of silk pieces with fancy stitches around each piece, and other of material of red, white, and blue. There may have been many others, but to us the outstanding ones were these two. Early one morning, a white-topped buggy going west from our house was a sight for our wonderful eyes. Joseph and Elizabeth were on their way to be married.
Okay, our time's up. Yesterday, I thought you might like this after what we just said here and what Vaughn said. Yesterday we went over to the Anthony Christensen house, the home where Elizabeth was raised, and we were walking around. We didn't know somebody lived there, so it was kind of illegal, you know, but we didn't know we were illegal, so we just did it. Eric, this is Eric, Janet's baby. Tell them what you found.
I found my grandma's sewing spool.
Said she loved to sew for Aunt Carly and Aunt Ladine, and they did the wedding quilts and everything, and they were way excited to decorate that house when it was being built. Elizabeth and Boletta, what was her mom's name? Castina was her mom. How excited they were to do the things make the rugs and things for the new home, and we found this little spool over there yesterday. I thought that was a very nice connector. Now, I'm going to hurry up and just type here, honey. He won't let me have it. I'm kind of mad. Okay. This is Gentry, and now you can turn that picture back over, honey. And Jayla helping us. I'm just going to hurry and tell you this. I called Mom one day, and I got it May 10th, 1999, and it says, Mom said, Margaret Callister said, where'd you go, Mom? Right there. She said she could remember Joseph Platte Callister, Daddy's father. And she says, she'd tell me what she could remember about him. And she says, well, first of all, he died of appendicitis the year that our mother and father, Lathel and Marge, were married. And he was 53 years old. And this is what he looked like. She said he had black hair, which was starting to gray, but he was mostly bald by then. And he was about our daddy's height, which was 5'9" or 10. He had a stocky build. He wore a size 9.5 to 10 shoe. His face was round. And she says, what I remember is he didn't talk a lot, but when he did talk, it meant something important. And then she says, I remember them telling about when they went swimming and in the ditch, and everyone always laughed at his cut-off pajamas that Aunt Margaret had made for him, his second wife. Everybody laughed at him at what he wore swimming. She said he was very kind. He was very religious and a good, solid man. He was very quiet, but fun too. And she says that Daddy always said he was a very hard worker. He was a good man, and Mom said she liked him. He taught our Sunday school class, and he was very knowledgeable. And I'm named after Joe for Joseph and Anne for Aunt Margaret. That's my name. Thank you.
Catherine, you'll be next.
What else did Grandpa recall about his father?
He wrote, my father was a very hard worker and taught us to be thrifty. He taught us children to enjoy work. Father and I used to race our horses home from the fields for lunch. One time, I was on the big horse and got moving rather fast. The next thing I knew, I was flat on my back on the ground with a pole under my head. Apparently no great harm was done, except I lost the race.
I have several people to thank for covering my part of the program. I appreciate those who have talked about Anthony Christensen. But I wanted to just add something about him. When he went on his mission, he had 10 children. He and his wife had 10 children, and the youngest was 1 month old. What a sacrifice they made at that point in their lives. And I thought about the many blessings we enjoyed because of missionary work in our family. In the early days and continuing on down today, we have missionaries serving in the mission field and helping others come to a knowledge of the gospel. And I'm so thankful for that. When Grandpa Anthony left on his mission, he left here from Oak City, and some of the traditions possibly that reached back at that time were that they would hold a dance much like we held last night, only people from all over the area would come, and they would give money to the missionary to help him sustain himself in the mission field. And in the case of Grandpa, it would have been his family to help them. And so I'm sure they had a wonderful time. That sometimes they earned as much as $500 at this dance. I wonder how much we would have earned last night. If someone had paid us for the dancing we did, would we have earned that much? It was fun. One of the ways that they, when the missionaries went to the field, our return home in the early days, it was necessary to go to Leamington to meet the train. So the parents went in the buggy or wagon to meet them. And when the missionary and his parents arrived near town, many of their relatives and friends saddled their horses or went in their buggies or wagons out to meet them. And that's kind of a neat tradition, isn't it? I'm just grateful for our progenitors and the sacrifices they've made for us. And I hope that we're willing to make sacrifices, not in the same way they did, but equal to the ones that they made back then.
Chloeen, you'll be next.
What else did Grandpa do for fun?
He wrote, when we were old enough to fish, Byron Nelson and I would mount our horses and head for the Oak Creek Canyon on opening day very early in the morning. When we came to the mouth of the canyon, it was still dark. And if you've ever been in the mountains this time of day, you will know just how dark it is, always with scary sounds. We would go to the head of the canyon, and really, we did catch a few fish.
The one that I'm giving 9 on is David James Shakespear, Grandma Church's father.
Can't even do this.
David James was born in 1861 in Spanish Fork to David Shakespeare and Hannah Brandon Shakespeare, who joined the church in England and then came to Salt Lake in 1856. Then they later settled in Panguitch in 1871. How many of you have done very much shoveling with the shovel? Is it very fun? Yay! Would you like to dig a thing from here to the end of the building and probably further than that? He wrote his life story, and in it he listed digging these ditches as one of his accomplishments.
And so I'm sure that it was not easy doing the building first stitches so that they would be able to get the water from Panguish Lake to come to Panguish to his farm. In 1907, he was made a high priest by David Cameron. He said that in 1885, he married Mariah Delight Dickinson in the St. George Temple. They had 7 children, and Grandma Church, Sarah Jane, was their first daughter, first child. And said that when they were married, this is how he put it. He said, "We had not a home, but I had 40 acres of land I had taken up upon the canal. I traded 20 acres back for breaking line, and I did my own carpentry and built our house about 1880, and lived in it ever since. 5 of our children were born in it." And he said that when they went to the temple, 4 of them were still, 2 of them in the temple, and the other 3 died in their youth or infancy. The following is some that Grandma Church wrote about her father in 1947. She said that he was the best provider, that he had a great big white team that we did enjoy. Said that he used to hitch them up to a 2-seater sled in the winter, and he'd drive us all over. So that one time he drove us to Dayton Street, where there were no ditches and everyone did their sleighing. And we were going along when another slave tried to pass us. He said that Dad let the horses out and he couldn't stop them. He said they finally ended up to their home, and then the horses stopped when they got home. Said that he always bought in quantity, and some other things, but I'm afraid Jerry's going to ring that bell. Mom, when I called the other day, on the 13th of this month, told me some of the things that she remembered about her grandfather. Said that he was very organized in all that he did. Said they had a granary with a basement where they had water flowing through it so that their food would be kept cold. And another granary where they kept ice, which they got from Panguish Lake, and they would cover that with sawdust, and this would keep it from flying. And so that she went with him one time when they went to have the wheat ground into flour. Said he didn't talk very much, and said that Grandma, her grandmother, Mariah Delight, said when they would get back from a trip that she would always make a comment about him not talking very much. And she said that she loved to talk, so I guess maybe he didn't have to. Then she said that Mom said that she has a picture of Grandpa trying to teach her grandfather, David James Shakespeare, how to ride a bike. And so that was quite a funny experience watching them. He stood 6 feet tall, and his wife stood about 5'2", 5'3". Once upon a time I was that. So that she had a trunk where she would keep all of her precious things and their money. And on Thanksgiving, that's May 1st, the adults. So aren't we glad they didn't carry on that tradition? Uncle Neil last night, I was asking him his experiences with his grandfather, and he said that he remembered when George and Shine would be taken, but he was too young, so he never got to go fishing at Panguish Lake with him. And so maybe that's where this tradition of fishing at Panguish Lake started. My only memory of him was when he was staying in Uncle Ned's hotel. And one day Mom had a sack of candy, and so she wanted me to take it in and give it to him. I was probably about 5, and I was even more shy than I am now. I took the candy, and there were about 5 guys in there. I handed the first one and ran out.
Did Grandpa have any other jobs besides farming? He wrote, I got a job one summer at Zion, where they were making a road on the side of a mountain. For the first week, the job was okay, and for lunch there was a table with all kinds of sandwiches, even peanut butter and jam. We could have all we wanted to eat, but one day the foreman told me my next shift started at midnight. I figured the only work done at midnight was helping some animal have its young and irrigating. I grabbed the first ride I could find back to Delta. I bought a 1923 Model T Roadster and was happy to finally have a car. Some friends and I drove to Caliente, Nevada, where we got jobs on the railroad bull gang. The work paid 52 cents an hour, almost twice as much as could be earned in Delta.
Robert can give you some of his information individually. He's not going to come up here. So we'll just have one more little part about Grandpa, and then we'll have, I can't count backwards very good. That would be Maralyn next.
Wasn't Grandpa called as a bishop when he was just 34 years old?
He wrote, I was ordained Bishop of Old Delta 3rd Ward by Spencer W. Kimball on 9th of January 1944. We had 9 children at the time, with the oldest being 12. They helped us with the cows, pigs, and sheep. We also raised hay, seed grain, and sugar beets. There was a stake temple bus, so it was very convenient for Marge and I to go often.
We've been asked to tell about Grandma today. Grandma Margaret Callister.
Our kids are holding up blankets that Grandma gave to each one of them. Oh, and I guess this one's the one we got for our marriage.
And they do love these blankets. Austin was going to bring one he had, and that poor little thing is just in shreds, but he won't leave home without them.
Mom asked me to just say some of the thoughts that I had about Grandma, and I have a couple of experiences just real shortly, but I always remember feeling extremely welcome when we get to, I can remember driving all day and late into the night, pulling into Delta, and that Grandma coming up and giving us a hug. And even after everybody got there during the reunion, you felt like you were really important, that you weren't lost in the crowd, and always felt like you got that individual attention. But I can remember the excitement as kids. Our big thing was to hurry and get to Delta and then worry all night long about getting up early in the morning to go rabbit hunting and wondering how the rabbit crop was for the year. And it was even more important than breakfast, we'd get up, and what we thought was really early, grab our guns and head out the door just in time to see Grandma running back up the road from her morning jog. So that was one of the first things that came into my mind about Grandma, was remembering her running up the road. And the other thing that I do remember, the breakfast was a fun time too, when we'd get back and have some time to visit with Grandma, when she'd pull out a jar of cherries that she'd canned. We always had bottled cherries for breakfast and big pancakes, and I'm sure we all have a lot of different ideas, but those were just some of the things that came to my mind.
I made up a little poem here. It's kind of silly, but I'm trying to say the things that I felt about Mom. Life has given us a jewel more precious than sapphires or pearls, more treasure than rubies or diamonds, a mother to us, 9 boys, 7 girls. Mom was born in Panguitch, 1914 was the year. She was child number 5 and the second daughter here. Before the age of 2, her singing career did start. Duets, operettas, singing mothers, and choir, doing the alto part. We all remember well at the beginning of each new day, hearing her songs and humming, bringing calm and peace our way. She has raised each of us with loving and tender care, fed, clothed, and supported, for us was always there. Recitals, programs, ball games, wrestling matches, musicals many, graduations, farewells, homecomings, marriages, blessings, hardly ever missed any. Family reunions and gatherings were things she loved to do, and trips you'd only dream about, somehow she made come true. Freshly baked loaves of bread, the best ever tasted or seen, bottled juice, fruit, vegetables, and tarts with jam and cream. Well-planned family home evenings with stories, prayers, talents, and songs. Games, blind man's bluff, hide the school, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. To make our birthday special, she'd always find a way with parties, cards, and letters that would brighten up our day. Quilts for the newlyweds and for each new little one. Generous checks at Christmas time. Her giving is never done. Many services she has rendered. Unconditional love she has shown, not only for her family, but for everyone she's known. She's loved and guided us, and no matter where we may roam, we'll not forget the setting of Mom, her love, and home. Grandma was one of the best things that ever happened to him. Can you tell us what he has written about her?
Of course. He wrote, on April 7th, 1931, I married Margaret Church. I have never met anyone who enjoyed life so much and was so talented. A month later, on May 6th, we were sealed in the St. George Temple. It was a thrill to be married and sealed for time and eternity. A few months after our marriage, Marge and I bought 40 acres of land for $175 and a new 2-roomed house for $200. Our goal has been to do something we enjoyed. Most of the things I have done have been a pleasure. As I look back, I am amazed at what Marge was and is able to do. Her faith and testimony were never shaken. Sheldon.
Well, I'm glad it's finally my turn to talk about my progenitors. And as you've talked, so much of the history is very much the history of some of mine in Deseret and in Fillmore and stuff. So that's been very interesting to me. Today, we have Charlotte Emily Talbot, some of her story, with her son, George Neuman Callister, who is Grandma Callister's old church, I'm sorry, who is Grandma's father. This was a skit that Jean and her family were going to do, and then she got sick. And so we have the characters. We have Charlotte Emily Talbot, who was supposed to be played by Jean, but now will be played by Sheldon. And we have Corey, who is playing George Neuman, who Chris was going to play when Jean's family was going to do it. So it's kind of a roundabout way, but this is a talk or a skit about these two.
Mother, you've had a very interesting life. I'd like to ask you some questions about things I've wondered about.
George, I'm really glad. I don't know how high-pitched your voice was, so I'll forget that. Anyway, I really tickled that you and George asked me these questions and be interested enough to find out a little bit about my life, because I've had an interesting life.
How did you come to move to English when you were a small child?
Well, our family was always very faithful. Members of the church, and President Brigham Young asked us to go down there and help do things, protect it from the Indians and make a fort and build some ditches and roads, and we didn't hesitate. We just rustled right down there and tried to help.
Were the Indians very scary when you first moved there?
Tell me about it. Those Indians, man, they were always on the warpath, and they were real scary. And as a matter of fact, they're so scary that we decided pretty soon that we're going to have to move out of there, and we did. And we went down to Circleville, and after about 4 years in Panguitch, and lived in a little church house, about 7 or 8 families of us, and we helped them, people around that area. We also helped ourselves by getting out of the place that was kind of scary.
That must have been uncomfortable and crowded. How long did you have to live like that for very long?
It was really uncomfortable and crowded, and just an ad-lib. I remember now that we had a couple of Christensen family here in Oak City who lived together. Remember that? Pretty big families. Right here in this little house about, a block up the road. And I guess that's the way it was in some places. A lot of big families lived in little tiny places. Anyway, so yeah, we were real crowded, and so we wondered what we were going to do about it. And President Young said, "Hey, you've done a good job. We appreciate you. You can go in the area, around the area, and help wherever you want to."
Tell me about your school experiences.
Well, we went next door to Beaver and went to school there. And this lady, Mrs. Pratt, as I remember, had taught us, and she taught in her home sometimes in a little school. And we paid her by the quarter. Each one of us paid a little bit of money, but she let me work it out by helping me with little duties, and so that helped a little bit. Also, she's kind of an interesting lady. She, like maybe a lot of teachers back at that time, wouldn't dare do it now, but some of us, well, some of them, we got kind of naughty, and she put a dunce cap on and made us sit in the corner for quite a while.
I don't want to ask if you ever wore a dunce cap, but I've heard about you singing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, they say I was a beautiful singer, and I was. And I sang real early on. In fact, I started singing so early on that they couldn't see me, and so they had to put me on a table so they could see me. I also sang in choirs in church starting about age 11, and I always liked music.
Were you always interested in the church?
It seemed like that I was born with the testimony, the gospel, and I really did enjoy it. I was the president of the primary. We had primary sometimes in our own home, and we had primary then for our own family and neighborhood children around in the ward, and I did like that.
Do you think your early family days were enjoyable?
What?
Your early family days were enjoyable?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had quite a time in our first family. Well, first of all, we had 14 children, and 13 were born in Pankage. Mary was born in St. George, and so we didn't have a enjoyable family. My father sheared sheep a lot, and was gone quite a bit, and he also farmed in the summer, and I had to do quite a lot of the work. My mother was crippled, and so I had to help her a lot, and there was enjoyable times. We had to do things like help the older ladies learn how, not learn how, but to thread the needle, because it was kind of hard for them to see, put that little needle in the little thread in the little needle and stuff. So those enjoyable times for me. I also helped outside and farm.
Tell me about your marriage and our family.
Well, when we started out, we had, well, I got married at 17, by the way. We had a mare and a cow and 50 cents. We had a little house, and I was proud of that little house. It had a dirt roof, it had a dirt floor, that was nicer because we found some old boards and put on the dirt floor, which made it nicer than just old dirt. And we had a real good time in that place, and we enjoyed our family a lot.
Thank you. We'd like to thank everybody for the effort they put into that. I think it's been a wonderful program to learn about our ancestors. And that was Pam's idea, by the way, who was supposed to be here taking charge. And we seem a little flustered just because we're not supposed to be here. But appreciate those who have brought displays in the back. And I hope you'll take time to look at those and the nice quilt that Candy's put together. We will have Mom give us some closing remarks here, if she would. And then if we could have one member from each of my brothers and sisters just go in and set your salad or whatever you brought to serve. And when that door opens and we say come in, then you're welcome to come eat. We'll hurry as quick as we can, but we'd like to hear from Mom now.
It was a lot more fun dancing last night than to try to do this. But I want to just say, as I said in a meeting, that I was asked to talk on Mother's Day. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But anyway, I began it by saying, I rejoice in being a mother. And I don't know of anybody that could be more blessed than I am as a mother, a grandmother, great-grandmother, mother-in-law, whatever I am, I'm proud and thankful to be. And I'm so grateful to all of you. It's just been the joy of my life to be here and be with you. Thank you all for all you've done and for coming. I love everyone of you.